The bottle of times ergo 2 times was half empty, but the cold was still winning. Levy's taxi, a Hyundai Sonata with a cracked windshield and 300,000 kilometers on the clock, idled in the sulphurous orange glow of a Beijing side street. It was 2:17 a.m. The winter of 2025 was a brutal one, a throwback to the old days, when the cold wasn't just a temperature but a physical weight. It pressed against the glass, seeped through the door seals, and settled in V's bones, a familiar ache he chased with cheap grain spirits. He was 53, but his eyes, reflected in the rearview mirror, belonged to a much older man. They were the eyes of someone who had seen the punchline to a cosmic joke and hadn't slept since. He was supposed to be a hero. Levy, Star Inspector, Public Security Bureau, youngest to make the rank. Now, he was a Times taxi Shifu Times, who reeked of Times Baiju Times and stale cigarettes, haunting the night roads he once policed. His phone, a cheap domestic model, buzzed on the dashboard. A missed call, a voicemail, from Times Lum *. Lynn, his stepdaughter, his late wife's only legacy. A 4-year-old journalist with too much courage and not enough sense, trying to solve the one case that had broken him. He thumbed the play icon, the cheap speaker crackling. At first, just static. A high-pitched, electric whine that set his teeth on edge. Then, a sound like wind howling through a narrow pipe. But Lynn wasn't outside. Then, her voice, a choked gasp. *. Baba, I see them. They, *. The static roared, drowning her out. And then, beneath the noise, another voice. It was not Lin. It was ancient, dry as dust, and spoke a Mandarin that was centuries old. *. Tamenhai Zai Che Shang. *. They are still on the bus. *. V's blood didn't just run cold. It stopped. He threw the car into gear, the tires screaming on the icy pavement, the half-full bottle rolling off the passenger seat. He was racing toward the western edge of the city, toward the dark, winding road that climbed into the fragrant hills, toward the route he had sworn, on his wife's grave, he would never drive again, the route of the 375. November 14th, 1995. Inspector Lee V, 23 years old and impossibly arrogant, was the first on the scene. It wasn't a scene. It was a tomb. The final bus of the 375 line, which had vanished 2 days prior, had been found. Not on its route, but in a reservoir catchment nearly 100 kilometers south. V had waded through the mud, his captain right behind him. The smell hit him first. Not death. Not decay as he knew it. It was something else. The acidic tang of ozone, the smell of wet wool, and an impossible penetrating cold that had nothing to do with the autumn air. They opened the doors. The driver and the ticket taker were inside, along with a single passenger. Found was the wrong word. Remains was also wrong. They were Times desiccated *. Gases, his captain had muttered, covering his mouth. Swamp gas. But V knew. This wasn't swamp gas. The bodies were shrunken, mummified, yet their clothes were soaking wet. Their faces were locked in expressions of silent, abyssal terror. The bus, a heavy diesel model, was bone dry. The fuel tank, according to the 2 officers who had checked it, was empty. No, not empty. V had crouched by the tank, flashlight in hand. He dipped a gloved finger into the residue. It wasn't diesel. It was thick, dark, and ferrous. It was blood. "Sir," V had said, his voice shaking. "The legend. The old woman who got off the bus. She said there were 3 men. In Qing Dynasty robes." His captain had grabbed him by the collar. "You will write, unexplained vehicular accident. You will write, Carbon monoxide poisoning. You will never speak of this again. Do you understand me, Inspector? V didn't. He wrote his own report, The Truth. He wrote about the 3 extra passengers. He wrote about the impossible decomposition, the blood in the fuel tank, the sub-zero temperatures times inside times the bus. He was on administrative leave within a week. Dishonorably discharged within 6 months. His career, his reputation, his life all gone. All because he refused to lie about what he saw. All because of the 375. Lynn's apartment was empty, the air cold. On her laptop, a dozen browser tabs were open. Declassified reports, all heavily redacted. Crank conspiracy forums. Amateur translations of Qing-era folklore. And a map. The 375 bus route, with a new looping annotation. She wasn't just investigating. She was Time's retracing asterisk. He found her press pass by the door, next to a small digital audio recorder. The recorder was gone. She had taken it with her. V drove. He pushed the taxi past 130 kilometers per hour on the 5th Ring Road, the engine whining in protest. He exited onto the long, dark artery leading to Xiangshan, the fragrant hills. This far out, the city's light pollution died, replaced by a cold, heavy fog that swallowed the road. The streetlights were few and far between, casting weak orange pools on the pavement. The trees, black and skeletal, crowded the asphalt. He pulled up to the last official stop. A simple sign, a rickety wooden bench. Nothing. The road ahead disappeared into the black climbing fog. A single light was on in a small, pre-war courtyard house set back from the road. A small Times, Xiao Maibu asterisk, a neighborhood shop, its windows steamed from the inside. A single bare bulb illuminated a woman sitting inside. She was ancient, Ba Lao, the old lady. She was wrapped in a thick, padded blue coat, nursing a cup of tea, her face a web of deep-cut wrinkles. V pushed the door open, a small bell tinkling. The heat from a coal stove was a physical blow. Buying something or running from something? The old woman asked, without looking up. Her voice was like gravel and silk. I'm looking for my daughter, V said, his voice raw. She was on the last bus. A journalist. Ba Lao finally raised her eyes. They were milky with cataracts, yet they seemed to see more than V's ever had. No one has been on the last bus in 30 years, Inspector Lee. V froze. You know who I am. I know everyone who belongs on this road, she said. She took a slow sip. Your daughter came by, full of questions. Like you, once. She didn't believe the stories. She believed in facts, politics, cover-ups. What did you tell her? The truth. That this isn't a story about ghosts. It's a story about a times place asterisk, a door that sometimes opens. This road, it's old, older than the city. It gets thin. Sometimes, the bus takes a wrong turn. Not in space, in times. Time asterisk. Where did she go? V slammed his hand on the counter. The old woman pointed a trembling finger up the road, deeper into the hills. There is an old depot where they used to service the buses, where they keep the old things locked away. She was looking for the original 375. She thought it was still there. A piece of evidence. Is it? Oh yes. Ba Lao whispered, a faint, strange smile on her lips. It's there, but it doesn't wait. It times travels asterisk. V threw a 100 yuan note on the counter. For the information. Keep your money, Inspector, she said, her smile fading. You will need it for the fare. He ran back to his taxi. As he pulled away, he looked in the rearview mirror. The shop was dark. The old woman was gone. 10 minutes up the winding road, the fog thickened, becoming a solid churning wall of white. V's headlights were useless. He slowed to a crawl, and then his engine sputtered, died. The electronics went with it. The dash lights, the headlights, the phone in his pocket, all dead. The only sound was his own breathing and the oppressive total silence of the fog. And the cold. It wasn't a gradual chill. It was a sudden crushing void, as if he'd been plunged into Arctic water. Frost bloomed on the times inside times of the windshield. V knew this cold. He fumbled in his glove box, his fingers already stiff, and pulled out his Zippo lighter and his flask. He took a long, burning pull of the Times Erguotu asterisk. It felt like drinking ice water. A dark shape appeared in the road. V's door was wrenched open. He wasn't pulled out. He was dragged by professional hands. A black canvas bag was thrown over his head. Levy, you are a difficult man to forget. A calm, bureaucratic voice said. You should have stayed retired. Where is she? Where is Lynn? V roared, thrashing. A taser discharged into his ribs. He convulsed, collapsing onto the frozen asphalt. Your daughter is in administrative holding, the voice said, devoid of emotion. She, like you, has been exposed to a classified anomaly. She will be processed. You know. V gasped, the world spinning. We know everything, Mr. Lee, the voice said. We are the ones who clean up the mess. We are the ones who keep the books. V heard the click of a syringe. My name, the man said, his voice close to V's ear as the needle slid in, is not important, but you may call me the Keeper, and I am here to tell you, your case is permanently closed. The world went black. V woke up to the smell of rust and diesel. He was in a vast, dark space, a cavernous bus depot. The air was frigid, his breath pluming. He was tied to a steel support pillar. Across the concrete floor, illuminated by harsh battery-powered floodlights, was Lynn. She was tied to a chair, her face pale but defiant. Her audio recorder was on a metal table. Standing over her was the Keeper. He was unremarkable. A man in his late 60s, wearing a well-tailored but plain gray Mao suit. He looked like a mid-level party functionary, right down to his black-rimmed glasses, but his eyes were flat, cold, and utterly pragmatic. Around him, a team of 6 agents in black tactical gear moved with quiet efficiency. They weren't armed with guns. They carried strange, canister-like devices, humming with a low-level frequency. The anomaly is unstable tonight, one agent reported, his voice tinny over a radio. Ambient temperature has dropped 12 degrees in the last hour. We're getting high-spectrum EMR pulses. The door is opening, the Keeper stated, as if discussing the weather. He turned to Lynn, pressing play on her recorder. Lynn's voice filled the depot. Asterisk, I'm on the last bus. No one else is here. It's diverting from the main route. Driver won't respond. Wait, it's stopping. Someone is getting on. Asterisk, a long silence. Then, the sound of static. The high-pitched wind. Asterisk, oh God. They're not. They're wet. Why are they wet? It's not raining. They're in robes. Ching. Oh God. Baba was right. They're still. Asterisk. The ancient dusty voice echoed in the cavern. Asterisk. Tamenhai Zai Che Shang. Asterisk. The recording ended. An excellent recording, Miss Lin, the Keeper said. A perfect first-hand account of trans-dimensional contact. It will be invaluable for our research. After, of course, you are fully debriefed and processed at Facility 7. You know, V croaked from the shadows. The keeper turned. Ah, Mr. Lee. Awake. Yes, we know. My department has been knowing since a similar incident in 1953. This route, this specific patch of land, is a weak point. A thinning of the veil between our reality and an echo. A cold, empty place. Ghosts, V-spat. Do not be primitive, Inspector, the keeper chided. Ghosts are memories. These are gravitational sinks. Time-frozen echoes of a tragedy that happened here centuries ago, imprinted onto the location. The Qing robes? A plague cart that was burned here in the 1700s. The bus is just a vessel, the anomaly. Asterisk. Borrows times it. It's a ferry. And it's hungry. So you cover it up, Lynn said, her voice shaking with rage. You discredited my father. You let people think he was insane. Sanity is consensus, Miss Lynn, the keeper said softly. If the public knew that reality had cracks, the consensus would fail. Our job is not justice. It is time's containment asterisk. We are the surgeons who keep the wound from bleeding out. We quarantine witnesses. We manage the timeline. Your father was a complication. You are another. And what happens now? V growled, pulling at his bonds. Now, the keeper said, checking his watch. The anomaly is scheduled to fully manifest. My team will contain the entities, harvest the energy readings, and we will all be gone before sunrise. You two will be transferred. Your contribution to state security is appreciated. As if on cue, the humming of the agent's devices pitched higher, the floodlights flickered, and the temperature times crashed asterisk. It went from freezing to abyssal. The agent's breath crystallized instantly. The concrete floor cracked with frost. One of the agents shouted, "Sir, all emitters are failing!" The frequency. "It's inverted! It's pulling times from times us! Hold the perimeter!" The keeper commanded, his voice for the first time holding a trace of, not fear, but time's annoyance asterisk. A sound filled the depot. Asterisk. Scree. Each. Asterisk. It was the sound of brakes. Metal on metal. But there was no engine. No rumble of diesel. From the deepest, darkest corner of the depot, a shape emerged from the fog that was now churning times inside times the building. It was the 375. The Times Original times 1995 bus. Caked in rust, windows opaque with a thick, icy grime. The number 375 was barely visible under layers of peeling paint and corrosion. It slid to a halt in the center of the depot, its tires making no sound on the concrete. "Perimeter!" the keeper yelled. The doors hissed open. A cloud of frigid, wet air rolled out, smelling of ozone and wet wool. The passengers emerged. There were 3 of them, just as the legend said. They were tall, ephemeral shapes, their forms constantly dissolving and reforming in the mist. They wore the high-collared robes and round-brimmed hats of the Qing dynasty. And they were times-drenched asterisk. Water streamed from them, freezing instantly as it hit the ground, creating a slick of black ice. They did not have faces, only shadows, where faces should be. "Contain!" an agent shouted, stepping forward, his canister device aimed. The lead passenger drifted toward him. It didn't attack. It didn't reach out. It simply, asterisk, past times him. The agent stopped. He didn't scream. He just went silent. The color drained from his skin, turning it a waxy, mottled gray. Frost exploded across his tactical vest, his open eyes freezing solid. He stood there, a statue of sudden, absolute cold, his emitter falling from his numb fingers and shattering. "Open fire!" the keeper screamed, pulling a standard sidearm. This was no longer containment. It was chaos. The remaining 5 agents opened up with their sidearms. The bullets passed through the entities with a wet times shush asterisk, impacting the far wall of the depot. The passengers didn't even flinch. Another agent was grabbed. He screamed as a misty, wet sleeve brushed his neck. His scream cut off, turning into a wet gurgle as his lungs flash froze. It was a rout. The Keeper's professional, pragmatic team was being dismantled by an Times Idea asterisk. V, fueled by adrenaline, snapped the old wooden chair he was tied to. He roared, grabbing a rusted tire iron. "Lynn!" He sprinted across the floor, sliding on the black ice. One of the passengers turned toward him. It was a void, a hole in the world. He felt his life, his warmth, his times, memories, times being pulled toward it. "No!" he yelled, smashing the tire iron uselessly through its misty shoulder. The cold was agonizing. He felt the Zippo in his pocket. He flicked it. The spark caught. The small flame was a beacon of defiant, warm yellow in the crushing, absolute blue cold. The entity Times recoiled asterisk. It hissed, a sound like a final dying breath. "It's the warmth!" V yelled. "The Times life asterisk. They hate it." The Keeper, dragging Lynn by the arm, was backing toward a steel door. "This way! We have to seal the bay! You're not taking her!" V bellowed. He was running, a broken man with a lighter and a tire iron, charging 3 literal ghosts and a squad of secret police. It was a magnificent, drunken, suicidal charge. The remaining agents, seeing V's lighter, sparked their own. They created a small, wavering wall of fire. The passengers stopped, hesitant, their forms churning in agitation. The depot was a chaotic battlefield. The 3 entities, an unmovable wall of cold. The 3 remaining agents, a desperate circle of small flames. And the Keeper, pulling a terrified Lynn, trying to get to the exit. "He's right, you know." The voice cut through the chaos. Ba Lao, the old lady, stood by the open doors of the ghost bus. She was untouched by the cold, her simple blue coat pristine. The passengers were still, as if waiting. "They are not drawn to life, Inspector Lee," she said, her voice echoing. "They are drawn to time's noise asterisk. Fear, regret, guilt." She looked at the Keeper. "And you, Keeper, you are the loudest man here." The Keeper froze. He looked at his hands, at his gun, at the cowering, frozen remnants of his team. He was terrified, not of death, but of time's failure asterisk, of the anomaly escaping. "What is this?" he demanded of the old woman. "Who are you?" "I am the one who lives by the stop," she said simply. "I am the ferryman's attendant. I am here to balance the books." The passengers began to drift, not toward V, but toward the Keeper. "The bus took its passengers in 1995, the old woman said, her voice sad. "But it left a witness. You." She looked at V. "It has been unmoored ever since. It keeps coming back for what it is owed. The fare is due." The Keeper, seeing the entities close in, made a pragmatic choice. He shoved Lynn toward V. "Take her! Seal the door! That's an order!" "It's not that simple," Ba Lao said. "The bus must leave with its fare. An exchange." V caught Lynn. She was shivering, half frozen. He looked at her face, so much like her mother's. He looked at the bus. He looked at the cowering Keeper. He finally understood. The 1995 incident wasn't an accident. It was a failed transaction. This was his redemption, the end of his haunting. He pressed his Zippo into Lynn's hand. "Keep this. Stay warm." He kissed her forehead, tasting the ice on her skin. "Baba, no!" she sobbed. "Don't. Go," he whispered. "Go. Live. And times tell them asterisk. Tell them the truth. Tell them the driver finally went home." He turned. He faced the keeper, who was staring, paralyzed, as the cold closed in. "You," V said. "You get to keep your secret. You get your containment." He pointed at Lynn. "But she times walks. You never contact her again. Swear it." The keeper, his face gray with cold and fear, nodded sharply. "Agreed." "V," the old lady said, her voice gentle. He turned to her. "It was me, wasn't it? It was always me it wanted. The first to see." She nodded. "The final passenger." Levy, ex-inspector, disgraced drunk, broken father, straightened his back. He pulled the collar of his thin jacket. He looked at the three shimmering cold figures, and for the first time in 30 years, he felt no fear, only peace. He walked past them. They parted for him like mist. He stepped up onto the rusted stairs of the 375 bus. The inside was not a bus. It was cold and dark and empty and smelled of ozone and wet wool. He walked to the front and sat down in the driver's seat. His hands, gripping the wheel, felt right at home. The doors hissed shut. Outside, Lynn screamed his name. The bus did not drive. It did not move. It simply faded. The rust, the grime, the cold, all dissolved into the swirling fog. In 1 second, it was there. In the next, it was gone. The cold broke. Like a fever, it vanished. The fog inside the depot dissipated. The three frozen agents stood as grotesque statues in the sudden, quiet silence. Lynn was on her knees, clutching the Zippo. The keeper stood alone, breathing hard. He looked at the spot where the bus had been. He looked at the frozen corpses of his men. He looked at Lynn. His pragmatism returned. He straightened his gray suit. He keyed his radio. Keeper to Central. Containment successful. Anomaly neutralized. Requesting cleanup crew for biologicals. We have one survivor, a civilian. Processing no longer required. She is irrelevant. He turned and walked out of the depot, not looking back. His cover-up was secure. The cost was acceptable. Lynn was left alone in the vast, empty building. She sparked the Zippo. The small, warm flame illuminated her tear-streaked face. She looked at the empty space on the concrete, still slick with black ice. The legend of the 375 bus would continue. The story of the ghost bus that vanishes on the road to the fragrant hills. But now, it had a new driver.